Alright, now I'd like to discuss the concealed carry movement in the United States. And I think that it's very, very significant because it has basically disproven most of the anti-gun claims. If we were to go to Britain or Germany, I mean, I did a video on international gun comparisons, and in that I observed that there's actually quite a few countries that have fairly liberal access to guns. Guns are not banned everywhere. In many countries, most of the guns that are available in the United States are readily available. But there is one area that this is usually not the case, and this is in concealed carry. Most countries do not allow their citizens to carry guns on their persons, except under unusual circumstances. So perhaps you can transport them to and from the range. They may make exceptions for politicians or maybe private security. But even Switzerland, you're allowed to carry a gun. Like the militia can carry guns to and from training, so it's not uncommon to see, a guy with an MP5 or an HK91 or something slinged over his shoulder. But just to carry a handgun on your person all the time, I mean, you might be able to get away with it, but it's not officially endorsed. In New Zealand, in some ways, New Zealand, I mean, it's easier to get a machine gun in New Zealand than it is in the United States, but you cannot carry a handgun. And there are some exceptions in the Czech Republic. I guess it's not too hard to do. But I think that's the only one I'm aware of where there's anything even close to what we would consider normal in the United States. And the reaction of people is really predictable. If we were to go on the BBC tonight and say the UK should allow citizens to carry handguns concealed on their person, they would immediately claim that that's insane, we'd be killing each other, we'd be at the pub, shoot each other, we'd be at the soccer game, we'd kill each other. And when people say that, they're basically demonstrating their ignorance, because we have 50 states in the United States, and I believe it's like 45 of them have in the last 15 or 20 years transitioned to shall issue concealed carry permits, and every single time that argument is made, and literally every single time it has not panned out. So a little bit of the history. I'm not an expert in this, but at some point, either in the late 19th century or throughout the 20th century, most of the states, indeed almost all of them, with one exception, Vermont, passed pretty heavy restrictions on the concealed carry of firearms. Now, it's a different subject, but a number of states actually never restricted open carry. I'm going to do another video on open carry, but most states either completely banned concealed carry or they made it extremely conditional. So it was legal, but it was hard to obtain, and usually only under exceptional circumstances. Again, the exception here was Vermont. Apparently Vermont never restricted the practice, either one, open or concealed carry. It's kind of weird. Vermont's a very liberal socialist state, and yet in terms of gun rights they are second to none, and always have been. Go figure. But in the mid-'80s, the pioneer state of Florida basically transitioned. I don't know, but I believe they had some kind of May issue, likely one that was pretty restrictive, and they transitioned to a shall issue. And of course, that was derided as going to be bad, it's going to be catastrophic, and it didn't happen. Florida's seen its crime go down. It's not necessarily because of the concealed carry, but obviously concealed carry hasn't caused an increase in crime. And gradually, over the next, up until now, more and more states have transitioned from their may issue to their shall issue. And every time, the blood in the streets argument comes up. And I know in my state, in Michigan, I went back. I mean, I wasn't really into guns. They did the transition in the year 2000. I was in high school. I didn't really pay attention. But I went back and read some of the newspaper articles. And of course, I mean, we'd get in a traffic accident. We'd kill everybody. We'd get in a bar fight. We'd kill everybody. Basically, everybody would just lose complete self-control. And they passed it anyway. Usually it takes some kind of Republican majority in the House or something. I'm not a Republican, but usually they're more willing to do this. And most of these states, I think it just waits for the right combination of legislators, and eventually they get passed. But anyway, you know, in Michigan, here we are 10 years on, and there were even a couple police chiefs who actually wrote op-eds saying that they were wrong. There were a couple who had been against it and said, hey, we'll all kill each other, and now they say it's apparently that is not the case. Crime is down. In some places it's down significantly. And the thing is now we've had this repeated in all these different states. You know, not all these states are farm states. They're meant, like Texas passed, did this. Texas has huge urban centers. Florida is not a rural state, really. You got this in Ohio, in Indiana, in Pennsylvania, in Virginia. Of course, the western states like Utah and Montana and Alaska. I mean, and the Midwestern states and the southern states. I mean, and every time the same argument is made, and it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf. Eventually you have to say, the predictions of doom they must not be valid because they never have come to pass. And it is true in the United States there has been a general decline in crime in the last 20 years. And again, I'm getting this from John Lott. Even some people say, well, New York State has never gone to shall issue, and yet they have seen a reduction in crime. And there's still a few states that are still may issue. There's still 2 states, Illinois and Wisconsin, that have no issue for concealed carry. In Wisconsin, you can open carry still. And Illinois is the only state where you can neither open or concealed carry under any circumstances. Illinois, by the way, is not the safest state by any stretch. In fact, if you go and look, Chicago is kind of infamous for having extremely deadly crime waves, despite being the most progressive state in terms of carrying. I mean, all these people in the UK who are afraid of guns, then they should all go to Chicago because that has the strictest gun laws, and they'd be safer there, right? No. That's the one place you shouldn't go. Well, one of the places you shouldn't go. To me, I think this has really had a big effect. If you look at the polls, it's pretty clear. Oh, what I was going to say is that the crime rates in states that retain may issue, even though they've gone down, they haven't gone down as much as states that instituted shall issue, or the few states that really on the ball who have gone to constitutional carry, which I think I'm going to do another video about that. But clearly, restricting who can carry has no positive effect at all. And although it's very hard to make proof in this, there is a very compelling argument to be made that allowing concealed carry reduces at least certain types of crime, including homicide, and probably rape as well. And I think, though, the other big thing that it's helped with is that the millions of people out there who aren't really active in the gun control debate, who are ambivalent about it, they're mostly aware. They hear the claims that concealed carry is going to end the world. Concealed carry gets instituted 10 years later. They realize that obviously the Brady campaign is crying wolf again all the time, like they always do, and that they just can't be taken seriously. Doesn't mean they're intensely pro-gun necessarily, but and the other thing I would point out, there are still a lot of people who have a visceral, emotional phobia about guns. I believe it's called Hoplophobe, and this doesn't work with people in Europe where they don't carry guns, but if you ever encounter such people and you live in a state that is may issue, or I'm sorry, shall issue, I would recommend figuring out what percentages of the people or how many people conceal carry. Usually there are pretty good stats on this, and usually it's usually not a huge percentage, but it's enough that if you live in a city, if you're going to Walmart, you're probably encountering these people on a multiple times a day basis, probably. Not I mean, there's no way to know for sure, but if 1% are concealed carrying, that's every 100th person, and usually people see way more than 100 people a day, which means that you're interacting with somebody with a gun all the time. I mean, not all the time, but regularly, and none the worse for wear. So it depends on your state, but I would definitely look that up, and usually you can allay people's fears about extending the right to places like campuses or whatever, because they'll say, oh, I'm not comfortable with the idea of a gun. You should point out that they're already living in a society, probably, unless they live in Illinois, that they're pretty common. So, alright, well, that's it for this one.